Today I will tell you how America became such a superpower in 200 years. Make sure to watch the full video.
Building an empire usually takes a painfully long time. Look at Europe. Centuries of brutal, inch-by-inch border wars to secure a few miles of farmland. Yet the United States evolved from a small collection of rebellious colonies to a global superpower in under 200 years. The Prussian statesman Otto von Bismarck once remarked that God takes special care of drunks, children, and the United States of America. To outside observers, the nation's growth seemed almost supernatural. While many credit this rise to early wealth or strong military strength, the evidence suggests something else. The real source of American power is the systematic exploitation of the map. In 1776, the new nation was extremely vulnerable. It was a narrow strip of 13 colonies pinned to the eastern seaboard, squeezed between the Atlantic Ocean and the steep wall of the Appalachian Mountains. To thrive, early Americans had to engineer their geography into a three-layered system of control: the core, the shield, and the reach. Crossing the Appalachians unlocked the American heartland, an enormous expanse of fertile plains connected by the most efficient natural river network on Earth. Geography dictates how a nation develops. Europe's rivers are fractured and flow away from each other, which historically fueled competition between separate nations. The Mississippi River Basin acts as a unifying circulatory system, pulling thousands of miles of territory into a single economic unit. This entire trade network funneled down to a single exit point at the Gulf of Mexico. Controlling the port of New Orleans meant controlling the entire economic output of the interior. In 1803, the United States neutralized this vulnerability. By purchasing the Louisiana Territory from France, they secured the port and doubled the nation's fertile land overnight. To physically occupy this space, the government passed the Homestead Act of 1862. By offering 160 acres of free land to anyone who could farm it for 5 years, they incentivized a massive demographic expansion into the plains. Populating this core created a self-sufficient internal engine. It provided the food needed to sustain a massive population and the waterways to transport goods cheaply without relying on foreign powers. Once the economic engine was secure, the focus shifted to defense. To protect the core from European invasion, the nation had to push its borders all the way to the Pacific Ocean. They methodically removed territorial threats. They acquired Florida from Spain, annexed Texas, and seized California and the Southwest following a decisive war with Mexico. This expansion created a unique defensive posture. The United States was now flanked by 2 massive oceanic moats and bordered by relatively weak neighbors to the north and south. Reaching the Pacific coast finalized the architecture of a continental fortress. The country was now an isolated landmass that was effectively impossible for an overseas power to ever invade. With the mainland secured, the U.S. began treating the Atlantic and Pacific as launchpads for global influence. In 1907, the Great White Fleet, a massive armada of 16 battleships, embarked on a global tour. It was a clear demonstration that the United States had built a blue water navy capable of operating in any corner of the world. To ensure this new fleet could move rapidly between oceans, they secured the rights to construct the Panama Canal, creating a vital logistical shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific. Earlier, the government had purchased Alaska from Russia for just $7.2 million. While contemporary critics mocked the deal, it effectively gave the U.S. dominance over the North Pacific Rim and its vast resources. This maritime strategy expanded significantly during the Second World War. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States utilized the destroyers for bases deal to trade naval ships for a permanent military footprint across the globe. This final layer, the reach, allowed the U.S. to push its defensive perimeter away from its own shores and directly onto the coastlines of Europe and Asia. After 1945, the U.S. used its island continent status to architect a new international order. They led the creation of global military alliances like NATO, anchoring their influence in the territories they had reached during the war. Projecting power from these distant bases relies on more than just hardware. It depends on a psychological dominance over the map. Rivals must believe that a superpower has the absolute will to defend its geographic interests. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the United States faced a direct geographic threat in its own hemisphere. The response was a display of absolute resolve, signaling that they would risk total war to maintain their continental security. While the crisis appeared to be a public victory for American resolve, it involved a quiet trade. To secure the removal of Soviet missiles from Cuba, the U.S. secretly removed its own Jupiter missiles from Turkey. The public perception of an uncompromising victory was as important as the physical removal of the threat. Rivalries will evolve and economic gaps may narrow, but the physical foundation of American power remains its greatest asset, a perfectly engineered geographic fortress.